Just My Baby Daddy podcast. It's AJ back. Eli, how you doing?
Doing all right, man. Just trying to get through this rainy day. But with us today, we have one of the most influential people in my life early on, especially in college. He's one of my mentors. He's one of my closest brothers, closest friends. And he's somebody that I've looked up to for years. And he's actually one of the biggest ball hogs on a basketball court that you'll ever see, Mr. Edwin Garrett. Ed, thank you for joining us today, man.
Oh, no problem, brother. I'm happy to be here. See, I'm doing good things. So.
And the thing is, man, when we talked about this podcast from the beginning, one of the first names AJ and I talked about wanting to talk to, and that's how important you are to us, is you. And you know, because you have so much information, so much knowledge that I think the world needs to hear. And I'm just happy that you felt obliged to grace us with your presence.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. That's big props for me. I appreciate that, man.
That's the only gas you're going to get from me today. Because,
I was gonna say there's too much flattery and kind words coming out your mouth. Gotta be something.
Look, now
I was waiting on it.
Look, I told you from the very beginning, we're gonna have real conversation, have fun with it. But I blow smoke up you for a little bit, But we're just gonna have fun with it.
Yeah, I was waiting for the uppercut. I knew it was coming. But go ahead.
Well, Ed, the way we start off our show, every episode, the first thing we ask all our guests is, what does it mean to you to be a father?
Oh, man. To be a father to me is humbling, actually, because I never thought I would be a dad growing up, because I didn't grow up with my father in my life full time. And I didn't even know what it meant to be a father, and have what fathers do, or, so I kind of, coming into fatherhood was tough for me, because I knew I would make mistakes. But one of the things that I would do is apologize for my mistakes and be humble enough to admit when I was wrong to my kids, my wife, to anybody, because that's the one thing I've learned about being a father is, man, you're gonna make tons of mistakes. There's no book for this, because I wasn't a guy who, y'all knew me in college. I wasn't a guy who apologized for much of anything. So knowing that I had to be humble myself and realize I didn't know what to do or how to do it, sometimes is humbling for you. So.
Gotcha. Well, let me say, I'm not quite as old as you all, so I don't know what you were like in college. So I'm gonna just throw that out there.
It goes back to the introduction. It goes back to the introduction. It's for better or for worse knowing him in college. Let me say it that way. But not on a serious note, though. So you're talking about being a father, but kind of tell us about your kids, the ages, and things like that. So that way, we understand who you are.
I have a college daughter who's 20 going on 30. She thinks she's grown, but she's college age, in college, University of Illinois, Chicago, basketball scholarship, full ride. She is from a previous relationship in college. Then I have my two children that were with my wife, little Edwin and Madison, who are both, one is in high school, one in middle school, and then I have my three nephews, all came to me through a tragedy with their mother murdered. They live with, two of them live with me now. One lives with their father, but I still consider the one who lives with his father my child, because I have to parent him when he comes here, and I just treat all of them like they're my children, so that they feel equal love from me. So I got many titles. I was a baby daddy once. I was daddy. I'm uncle daddy. I'm uncle pops, or whatever you want to call it. So I got perspective on fatherhood from three different directions.
Right.
So
how was that integrating those children into your life? Because you seem like, from a distance, it seemed like you did it seamlessly, and it's very commendable the way you did it.
It was not. It was a nightmare for a little while. No, not really a nightmare. I would say it was tough because you deal. There's a couple of things you deal with. You deal with other people's DNA. You also deal with a child, like getting children from a traumatic experience, losing their mom, and then you get that you get that the kid, like the child, come from a single parent who's been a man in the house, in his house for the longest, and he's got to start to understand that you're the man of the house. So you got that internal battle in your house of trying to deal with a 9 or 10-year-old who thinks he's in charge of the other kids, and it's kind of tragic. He don't want to be a kid, so you got to kind of teach him to be a kid because he's been so long. He's been the man in his house and having to cook, watch kids, get the kids to school, get them on the bus. And when you take all that over, he feels some sort of way about it. You're not his dad, and then you got to discipline. So it's like, and then you deal with cultural differences. My nephews came from, my nephew's sons came from DC, and I'm out here in Woodbridge, so Virginia. So that's a big difference in culture right there. I mean, it's only 30 minutes apart, but a huge difference in culture. The way people operate, the way people do things, the way even school, like treat kids in school, is totally different. The expectations are different. So it was rough, man. But we got through it with some patience, with some counseling, with some just tough love at times, and sometimes you had to use the rod, and sometimes so.
So you were just mentioning counseling as far as the familiar integration. So how did that help? Like, because in the Black community, counseling is kind of frowned upon. So how did that help?
It helped a lot because the kids got to talk to somebody who. So let me dial back for a second. So uncle to dad role is tough for a kid to understand. I was a fun uncle before, right? We go to football, we go to baseball games. I come and pick you up. All the stuff that I do is fun. Now I got to switch to I'm your parent, your guardian. So I got to make sure you're doing right in school. I go to school. If you do go to school, I'll come pick you up it's different now. I can't bribe you or anything like that. I just got to kind of take on that parent role. So it was a lot different for that. And the counseling helped in the sense of making them understand that, and also dealing with the grief of the loss of their mom, and also dealing with their whole world being turned upside down. The little brother not living with them, or them moving from DC to Woodbridge, even though it was a nicer situation. You used to what you used to,
Man.
So that from that perspective, counseling was a big help. Big help.
Gotcha.
Eli, you might not know like how big of a difference it is, and it's DC and everything changed now, but literally that's the same move I made at that age, and it is a complete and total culture shock. I moved from Southeast DC on Pennsylvania Avenue, going to Randall Highland, and I can't even tell you the name of the school I went to in Virginia. I was out there for a year and a half, got kicked out of school. Like it's all kinds of stuff. Just racial tensions, it's just dealing with whole different environments, all of that. So it's tough. And counseling, was not even a thought about as a thing. And I was in DC in the early 90s. Like, so it was complete different culture shock. So I can understand. It's a lot on the kids too. It's a whole lot on the kids.
Gotcha. And I think that stigma you were talking about, Eli, is something that never crossed my mind when dealing with counseling. I've done marriage counseling. I've done just counseling, just sit down and talk to somebody. And I know that it feels good to do that. And I know that if you're a kid dealing with trauma and stuff like that, you need that. So, I mean, it was a lot. I mean, we had to go to a grief counseling place that was logistically wasn't close to our home, but we had to do it like twice a week, after work and stuff like that. So it was a hump, but we've gotten to a better place where they don't necessarily need counseling anymore. But I think later on in life, when they get older, I think they won't be afraid to go and seek counseling when they had that trouble. I think that was that blessing that came out of the situation, because you see of so many kids. I had a cousin just recently who committed suicide, and you see so many people that don't reach out and use those counseling services, and they could use them. So, starting them early with that and letting them know that that stigma is not something that they have to, they can, it's not something that they should be worried about, and just go and get your help you need. That's huge, man. That's huge. All kids should feel that way.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you're talking from a very mature point of view right now. But let's kind of go back to your oldest daughter, and you were a lot younger then when you had her. So kind of tell me about being a younger father, and then up until now, what you had to deal with when you said you were a baby daddy at that time. Kind of explain what you were going through then, and what you learned, and how you grew to be where you are now.
That was a different experience. Being a parent out of wedlock, being a single dad, or being a baby daddy, or whatever you want to call it, is not ideal. I did not grow up with the mindset of ever wanting to be married, but I never thought I would have kids outside of. I never even really thought I'd have kids, to be honest with you. But outside of wedlock is tough, man, because you put undue stress on yourself, the mother, the child, and at times the child can feel neglected. They could feel forgotten, and that was tough. And being a young dad, I didn't know what I was doing. It's hard. I mean, dealing with another person that you're not married to, and dealing with children, because a lot of your frictions, and especially when you don't know the person that well, because having sex don't help you know them at all, who they are and what they're about, and so a lot of that friction and tension and stuff can bleed into your child, and into your relationship with them, the relationship with their parents, into their whole relationship and outcome in life, like relationship with other people. So that was something I regretted. Not daughter at all. Love my daughter to death. Not something I regretted at all, having her, but doing it the way I did it. I wish I could go back and do it a whole nother way, make decisions. I still have the same child because I love her to death, but I didn't really like the baby daddy role. It ain't my thing. I mean, I'm just being honest, man. That the child support thing was a problem like that. Yeah, the child support thing, I don't care nothing about that. Like, I'm gonna pay more than what I need to pay. I ain't worried about none of that. That wasn't the issue. It's just it was child not being able to mold your child like you know that it should be.
Yeah, day in, day out. Yeah.
The day, like I get my daughter, my kids now, it's like they take on a lot of the things that they'll take on a lot of the baggage that you have. You have a lot of baggage, which I don't give my kids a lot of baggage, but some people give their kids their baggage. I don't, my kids, if something's wrong in my house, my kids probably wouldn't even know. They would have no idea until they needed to know, if they needed to. So.
Yeah. So from a co-parenting point of view, with your daughter, how did you work through those? Like, what are some of the challenges you went through, or the things that you had to work through to kind of make yourself present and a sustainable force in her life? How did you do that? How did you navigate that?
Some of the challenges, man, I didn't do it at all. I'll be honest with you. As a young man, I was very much arrogant and stubborn, set in my ways. So a lot of times I argued and battled over stuff that right now I wouldn't even consider arguing over. And that's another thing, is having kids and outside of wedlock is that makes it even tough. It makes it even tougher, especially when you're not as mature. So I battled over stuff. But I made sure I stayed present in my daughter's life. I would get her when she let me get her. One of the things I do regret is not really, my child support and stuff was all set up because I never wanted to be that dad. But I never really I trusted that the custody thing would be easy. If I'm paying child support, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, then coming to see my daughter, coming to get my daughter, be easy. But again, you deal with people's personalities, you deal with people's quirks and things like that. That could turn into a full-on nightmare. It did at times. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you, sometimes it's my fault because sometimes I was not the nicest person about it. And then sometimes it was her. So I'm in my life now where I really realize like you ain't always right, you ain't always wrong. You gotta be somewhere in the middle. So I can say that my daughter's mom was a good mom, but we didn't always agree. And sometimes she just like I did, maybe even I was a little immature and used my daughter as a weapon at times. So which is it's regrettable, but that's what happens, I think, when you deal with a person you kind of like yoke with, and you have a child and you're not friends. The problem, you know.
Yeah,
the,
that
the
can be a
biggest part
problem.
of yeah, the
That
biggest
can be a
part of
problem.
marriage I've been for 17 years, been my wife for 20, and we're the best of friends. So no matter what happens, like we're gonna do what's best for our kids, and we're gonna do what's best for each other. Friends now, we get on each other's nerves, yeah, but at the end of the day, we still friends. So
So when you go back and think about it, so you had your oldest daughter, and then you said you got married, you had two more children with your wife, right? Can you
right.
tell me the difference? I understand the relationship and you're talking about friendship, but explain to me the differences in your first child and then with your next two, in the relationship impact that it had. Like what did you learn that you carried over, and what did you vow to not do that that you did the first time? Like, how did you grow?
Okay, so yeah, so the first time I think I started to understand a little bit more what my daughter's mom was going through. Dealing with raising children is tough, and I started to be a little more sympathetic to that. So my relationship with her was a tiny bit better. But with my kids, I think the biggest thing I learned was to just let I had to let my kids be my kids, be who they are, who they're going to grow up to be, right? So I didn't force sports on my son. I didn't force different things on my daughter. It was more so let their personality shine, let them be who they want to be. Because I did not necessarily not do that with this daughter, but I started to see in other people and other relationships where in family, even in my sisters and siblings or whatever relationships with their children, like if you don't allow your kids to grow who they want to be, then they're gonna start doing something kind of morphing into something totally different, kind of rebelling, because it's like nature. It's like you can't make your dog be a cat, and you can't make your cat be a dog. It's gonna be what it is, right? So
Right.
if my son barked like a dog, he barked like a dog, you know. But if he's just if he a big dog, then he a big dog. If you're a little dog, you're a little dog. I don't care, but he just be a good person is what I've been. That's what I learned from dealing with my oldest daughter, and grow up is just yeah.
I got a question back to the whole learning process. So if you had to go back and think about how did you really learn? Who would you say taught you how to be a dad?
Oh, definitely I would say my wife and my daughter. My wife in the aspect taught me how to love differently because I never, like I said, I never thought I was gonna get married until I met my wife. I would have never, if I would have met her, I don't think I ever would have been married. I don't think I probably would have been, I know I'd have been a dad, but I would have never got married. So she kind of taught me how to love. She kind of taught me how to love unconditionally. My daughter too. Like my daughter melted my heart when I would see her. Like all that. I think I probably spanked my daughter once in her life, and probably said no to her like twice. I can count on my hands. Like when I said no to her, she about lost it when she was a teenager. Like, what do you mean no? Like that ain't what that word. So I learned how to to love people and regardless of what, whatever. Like I just learned I love unconditionally, just learn. And that's something I didn't do before. Like my wife, I could give my wife most of that credit. And then my daughter, about this 50-50 because you love people through their flaws, you love people through their problems, you love people through their quirks and all that stuff like that. And like to this day, I tell my kids, all my kids say, "Oh, one's your favorite." I'm like, no, I love all y'all. I have no favorite. I love all y'all. Y'all all different. Y'all all special for different reasons. Like he's my first son, of course. So I love him. Amir was my first child. Madison's my baby girl. My nephews are my boys. We the video game and play sports and stuff like that. So they all got their little special things, but I love them all for different reasons. So they bring different things to the table, and that's what, as a dad, you have to learn to respect those different things they bring to the table, and not necessarily say, "Oh, you should be this or you should be that," or like let them be who they are and appreciate who they are. And I didn't. That's something I didn't do. I often, and Eli probably would know this better than I often try to change people into what I wanted them to be. Like you, especially when it came to capital, like you should be this kind of new. You handle it this.
That soft shit out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and at this point in my life, I'm like, I slap me.
I don't give a fuck.
But see, that's real. That's crazy to hear because that kind of goes back into when you're talking about loving your kids equally but separately because of what they bring in, the different gems and nuggets that they have individually. And then when you're talking about your personality is a more aggressive personality in a sense, but hearing the softer side of you and the parenting side of you is really interesting. And it kind of leads me to, well, at what point or what moment did you really first realize, yo, I'm really a dad, I'm really a father? What was that moment for you?
Oh man. So my daughter's mom had gone through some trouble, and was going through some financial trouble, some issues or whatever, some bad decisions she had made or whatever, and I had to come pick my daughter up. And I always told, and this is real, I always told this daughter, I was like, I'll never take her away from you, because I think just like a boy needs his dad, I think a daughter needs her mother. So I said I'll never do that. So I came picked her up, and I had to take care of her for about 3 months. Not by myself. My wife was at the time we were dating, and this how special she is. She was in college helping me take care of my infant daughter. And I started to realize, like, wow, I had to go buy diapers. I had to find a daycare. I had to, she had pneumonia one time, and I had to go take her to the hospital. I about lost it, right? And I was like, man, I'm a real dad. Like I fell asleep with a pacifier in my mouth, laid out on the bed, and I'm like, I'm really a dad. Like that hit me hard. And I still got my wife got the picture somewhere where I'm laid out on the bed with a pacifier, like I'm done. I'm tired. Like I worked, I came home, I got to deal with the child. I tried to do her hair, it was just a mess. And I realized, like, and but it was cool though, because I kind of felt like, man, this is what a dad does. Like, you take care of your baby girl, you make sure she's good, and provide. And I was like, man, it's the first time in my life I felt like responsible for something other than going to O'Charlie's on Sunday nights and drinking. That was the biggest responsibility I had. Hanging with the brothers.
Because the girls do you different, man. The girls pull at you, and you have a baby girl who's gone through a lot. And so, like, how do you handle that? And I don't know if you want to get into everything, but how do you? Well, yeah, just speak on your daughter.
My daughter Madison is is 7 years remission from cancer. She has 4 hydroblastoma. We battled it since she was like 2 or 3 years old, for about 2 or 3 years. It was probably the toughest time of my life because I was totally helpless. Like you said, girls do something different to you. So I would say all the time, like, you can mess with me, you can mess with my boys, like we're gonna let, right? But you can't mess with my daughters. Like I actually will lose it. Like I lost it on the kindergarten team for about my daughter, and actually she got she got suspended from work for about a couple of weeks because I called Child Protective Services on her. But I lost it. I lost my entire. I had the police at my door 3:00 in the morning. Like I called the police. I was like, "Look, y'all gotta go arrest her right now." And they were like, "Sir, what are you talking about?" My wife was downstairs. Like he's all right, but I lost it. Like you cannot mess with my daughter, my daughters at all. But that when she was battling cancer, I could do nothing. Like I was at only God's mercy let me get through that because I couldn't. There's nothing I could do. I can't do nothing with cancer, you know. But the only thing I did do is I kept inspiring her up to fight and know like your dad is here. We're gonna fight this together. That's on ball right now. Because when she went ball, I went my head ball. Yeah, part of the reason. Just okay. Look, man. I had enough to brush. I was hitting the other way, but she with the help. I throw that in there.
You were brushing with a snowplow.
She helped me move to the direction I was already going. But I mean, it was, man, that was one of the toughest moments of my life, man. When you feel like you're like the mercy of doctors and the mercy of medicine and the mercy of everything and any other thing that approached my daughter and trying to basically kill her, like I would have died fighting it, you know? But cancer, you can't do that. So cancer, the only thing you can do is pray and God to take it away and keep fighting and inspiring her. And she actually inspired me. That's my hero. Like I used to love football for a number of reasons. I don't watch it now as much or at all, really. But I used to idolize Ray Lewis and all these other people, Muhammad Ali, and all these people. Man, when my daughter got cancer and I saw those kids in the hospital battling and facing death every day and smiling and playing and doing stuff, those be my heroes. I've been like, just because you can catch a football and run or hit or whatever, like these kids are literally looking death in the face and smiling and doing things for other people. And I remember one kid, he was basically on his deathbed. My daughter drew my daughter a picture because she was feeling bad and brought it to her. Like that's a hero to me. That's somebody who's looking at death and at that age, like right now, if I was on my deathbed, I'd probably be here freaking out. And these kids were facing it and looking at it like I'm helping another kid. Like you can't be more of a hero than that to me. So and then the siblings that sit around and sacrifice years of their life battling, giving up their parents and battling, staying in the hospital and helping their sister battle cancer or brother battle cancer. Like those kids are brave, man. Those kids are strong. And I wish I had just a little bit of that. Like they got, like it's something different about those kids. And it's something different about my daughter in that regard too, because she's just, nothing phases her. Like she's like, I'm gonna beat cancer and that's I'm going home. And I mean, yeah. So I mean that was a tough test to your fatherhood right there, man. Because you got to pull something different to be to inspire your wife, to kids, to inspire. Like you got to keep the upbeat attitude because when the mind goes, that's when the body goes. So that was tough, man. It was real tough.
So speaking on the sibling part, like you said, you love all of your kids equally. But there are times when you just have to be there for your daughter because she has all this stuff going on. How did they balance, or how understanding were your children, or how were they during that time? Like, because mom and dad can't always be there the same way we normally would.
My oldest daughter had a bit of a problem with it because she was in her teenage years, and it's kind of like those formative years where you get a little selfish about what you want. And I understood, so I didn't blame that on her. She was, and she didn't spend as much time with me as the other kids because she wasn't there on a daily basis. So that was a little tough for her. She didn't get the therapy that I wanted her to get, but that wasn't necessarily all up to me, right? which is another part of that,
Hey, baby daddy syndrome. I got it. Listen,
right. My son was an absolute trooper. Let me say that my oldest daughter was a trooper, and I understood where she was coming from. She was at that age where in middle school your hormones change, and then you're losing your mind, trying to figure out who you are. You need to connect with your mom, you need to connect with your dad, and I didn't have that time like I should, wanted to be with her. So she was a trooper in that sense. And she loved her sister and her brother. So I'm not gonna like this spoiled brat off, being selfish. But my son, he dealt with it because he was his parents being there with him a lot, and we had to separate. So some days I was at the hospital with my daughter, and then some days my wife was there. I stopped working for a little while. My wife stopped working for a little while. So it was a lot of just changes going on. And my son's a child with special needs as well. So he had to get counseling and therapy to adjust to it. But he was a trooper through it, man. Like he loves his little sister to this day. Like he loves the just to see her wake up in the morning and just be around. They're like best friends. And he was always wanted to be up there at the hospital with her. He always wanted to, but at times you can't, when you're a kid, you got, kids are like a learn factory. You can't have them around kids with compromised immune system all the time. So, but yeah, I mean, that was tough, man. My son is very different from me when I was younger. I think his experience is a lot different because he has a dad in his life, but he is very much a loving, caring, kind, like a gentle giant. Like he is nothing like me when I was younger. I love for that because he's just as caring and loving and kind. Like he's the sweetest. He always wants to please people. Sweetest kid. I was not like that. I was not the people pleasing person. I was pretty much like, I'm gonna do me. I was a mama's boy, and I love my mom. I do whatever she wants to do, but everybody else kick rocks.
So with everything that you and your family have gone through, what is the biggest thing that you want to instill into your kids that they can hold on to as they get older, though?
Always be giving. Be caring, kind, and giving, man. Give what you have, because that's one of the things I learned from my wife. My wife is a very thoughtful and caring person, giving person. Like she's always finding some way to give some like clothes to somebody, or she thinks, oh, so-and-so could use this. Even if I don't know if they need it or not, she's like, don't throw it away, give it to Goodwill. Like always just like that. And I picked up some of that from her. And I've always tried to teach my kids the same thing. Is like, when you see somebody in need, help them. Like, don't be the guy standing on the sideline when you see an older lady out here shoveling the snow. Go out and shovel. Then go next door and shovel that guy. Like, just be that guy so that when people see you, they see that's the kid who is, caring and kind, thoughtful, and always willing to help out. So I think that's where I want my kids to be like, just like my and just like my wife, just always thinking of others, always putting others first, always just being kind and thoughtful, man. I mean, that's when I first had kids, my first thought was like, yeah, they're gonna be playing sports, they're gonna be doing this, they're gonna be, all American. I'm gonna be on the NFL. But now it's like, man, I don't even want, like, that ain't really my thing. My thing is my kid. I want my kids to be good people, man. Like all the rest of that, being in the limelight and all this other stuff like that. That's cool, but you see people in the limelight that's just terrible people. It don't matter whose limelight they get, they just gonna be terrible people. And I've learned that the good person is not about what you have, or what you can floss, or what that's not. It's about just being a good person, man. So
early on, I've always known you as a jerk. You were selfish.
Well, I was very selfish.
You were a lot of adjectives that a whole lot of people might have words for you. But
yeah, I can imagine.
But seeing their growth, what is the main thing your kids and everything. What is the main thing that they've poured into you that you've learned and that's changed you? What's the main thing that they've poured into you?
I just think my daughter softened me up, because you kind of got to be a little softer and gentle with the girls. And my boys have taught me to be more humble and be able to my mates. One of the things I always tell them,
I forgot arrogant.
Yeah. I admit my flaws, but I was not the best brother that I could be at times, or the best human being I could be, but I've learned. That's what no matter how you start, it's how you end, right? I think. Anyway.
For sure.
But no, but just like what was I saying? You throw me all off.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
what you learned from what have your kids poured into you?
Oh yeah. But just being like my boys, like just being able to humble yourself and apologize, and being able to just humble yourself, man. Like I always tell them, like, if you did something wrong, just say you did it. Stand on it. You know, if you did something wrong, just stand on it and be a man about it, and just say what you did. And so that's what I try to be. Like the other day, I snapped one of my boys over something, and I realized I told him he could do that, and I was like, you know what? Let me go back. So I apologized, hugged him, messed around. But he's like, you remembered? You told me. I was like, yeah, I did. So I'm coming back to apologize. But I think that may not sound like a big thing, but I think a lot of men
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, but don't know how to just say I was wrong. Like that, if you teach your kids, if you can teach them how to say I was wrong and I apologize and please forgive me. That's huge. I never, when I was in college, I don't think I ever asked for that. I don't think I ever asked anybody like for forgiveness. I never admit I was wrong. I right till the wheels fell off, no matter what. So just, yeah, that kind of growth it takes a while, man, especially for cats like us,
Don't put me in there. Don't put me in there.
Don't put me out of here.
Don't put me calls himself.
I know you got your shirt. He got his shirt buttoned to the top. He's he trying to be all, hey, but look, we know what it is.
Hey, look,
you don't show a lot of growth yourself, brother. So
this is not about me. This is about you. We're not really talking about me and my flaws right now, because that's a whole nother episode.
That's a good. He dipping and diving, dodging. I see it. Okay.
Hey, look, you see, I learned the body from you, so I know how to move around a little bit.
Oh man, that's funny, dude.
So if you had one big piece of advice you had to give to an aspiring or new father, what would it be?
Mm-hmm. Man, there's no book. I keep saying no for this, man. You're gonna make mistakes, embrace those mistakes, learn from them, and just keep moving. Don't let those mistakes stay in depression or hinder your growth, man. Like, take them as mistakes and move on. Because you can't, one thing you can't do, you can't take back words and you can't take back actions, but you can learn from them. So just learn from them, man. There's gonna be times where you flat out wrong and you go off on your kids, or you say something you shouldn't say in front of your kids. You do things in front of your kids you shouldn't do, and just learn from it, man. Trust me, there's no perfect. Anybody who says a perfect dad is a fool. Is an absolute fool, and you probably need to go seek some counseling, because there's no perfect dads. We all messed up,
and their kids won't agree with them. They say they're perfect dad. I'm pretty sure their kids want to say you're a damn lie.
You're a damn lie. You're right, and my kids know better. Like I tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm not perfect at all. I'm gonna make mistakes. Y'all just gotta bear with me.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna learn though, so that's the important thing.
Well, you're absolutely right. There is no book on like fatherhood or how to become a father, but there is a podcast now. So we got that going for us. We got a little safe space for Black dads.
I was gonna say, man, I think it's a great thing you're doing, man. That's why I wanted to come here and just be honest, man, because you know, lying, trying to put up a facade that I did everything right, or you know, I was the perfect baby daddy, and no, ain't no perfect baby daddies, ain't none of that. If that's not an ideal situation, if I could recommend anything, don't be a baby daddy. Marry, have children with the woman you're gonna marry and be with, and even then, wait a few years, 3-4 years, and make sure that's gonna work out before you start popping kids out, because it only hurts the kids when the family is separated like that. And I would say that that'd be some other advice I give, because you know, a lot of people now are just kind of all willing to, I could be single and have a baby here, baby, man. You don't know how you're affecting that child, man. And you know, when they seeing other parents, I remember from my experience growing up, I used to see people's parents together, and you know, 2-parent household, whatever. I'm like, man, that's weird. Like that, like but I kind of wanted it. But I was weird. Like they actually talk about it. Like my mom was like, y'all run the street, do what you do. You know, so I grew up a lot different than other. So you know, but I used to see it, and after a while, like it's crazy. This is gonna sound real crazy, but I used to want my mom to be like Claire Huxtable, like that kind of mom, like you know, like had that Bill Cosby, Claire Huxtable type. But I ain't had that. I had my mom was the polar opposite of Claire Huxtable, and I mean the polar opposite. So you know, that's and my mom and dad split. So my dad at the time wasn't that mature. He was off in Aruba with women and Bahamas with women, and you know, he was just out doing his thing. Like he was single. He got 3 kids at home. So, you know, protect your household, fellas. Like don't let nobody, you know, no other woman or anything else. I mean, if you're gonna do your thing, whatever that is, but care home and make sure you know you out there thinking of your kids and family first.
Risking a lot, losing a lot,
So I want to get you out of here on one last question. And we were talking about your background. You were talking about all the things that you've been through. But I want you to tell me and tell us what you want your legacy as a father to be.
Legacy as a father, man. I always want kids to want to be around me. They feel like they're loved. I feel like they're appreciated. So I want my legacy father to be that, to be loved, and just I want my kids to like yearn to be around, even when they get older. Like I want to see what dad's doing. Like let me go check him out. What is he doing? And I ain't trying to be one dad, but I'm saying like, y'all want my kids to be like, okay, let's go. When the holidays come around, I want to go here and be with my family. A lot of times people don't feel safe in a safe space in their own home, even when they get older. Like, you know, you come back from an abusive household, or if you come from an abusive household, or you come from a household that's split or divided, or where you felt like your parents didn't love you or they didn't want you. You know, I don't ever want my kids to feel so. My legacy is that just love, and I just want my kids to be. I want to grow old and see my grandkids and see my kids just doing their thing, man. Just wanting to be around me and wanting to hang out. Come, we'll go by their house and tear up their house, leave the dishes out.
So you don't want them to take from the home, then, huh?
Shit I didn't do it. I'll be the only one in the room. If it all broke up, I ain't do it.
Gotcha. Well, look, man, when we had the conversation about you coming on, you had a ton of excitement and just eager to talk, and you really showed up, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us and talk to us and tell your story and be honest with us and open. And we really appreciate it, man. And one thing we can say that you're open and honest book, and you're just, you're fun, but you have a lot of knowledge and wisdom that you share with everyone. And we really, really appreciate you, joining the Just My Baby Daddy podcast.
Yeah, man, I appreciate y'all having me, man. I was really excited about this. I think this is a great idea. Like you said, a safe space for Black dads. And I think every Black dad's got a different story. And I hope y'all bring it out in everybody. Because I think, like my story, I got the 3 different, versions of being a dad. And there might be a fourth. I don't know, but somebody got something different. You know, they might have an experience, but something different. You know, but yeah, man, I really am glad y'all doing this, man. I appreciate y'all for real, man. Y'all young brothers showing up. You know, I raised y'all right.
All right.
Yeah, we can cut this.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I forgot I was a fraternal father too.
Man,